the nuts. Alright YouTube, so I posted about a month ago about some foundation problems with my workshop slab. The 40-year-old slab is only 3.5 inches thick, and underneath it, where my lift is, woof. So I called out the pros, expecting to shell out about 15 grand to jackhammer out my slab and pour a new one. They found the voids were all over. The elevation is low here in this corner, normal here over the footer, low again here, then up here where there's evidence of an old report, and then it bows down in the middle where the lift is. And then back up towards the workbench, which is apparently the sturdiest part of the shop, which is a metaphor for something, but I don't know what. You really can see the sinkage from here. This drain clogs instantly. It's clear as far as the borescope will reach anyway, and it runs that way under the slab into an old dry well. It could be leaking water under the slab. Probably not letting in as much water as this crack is, though. The sinkage is really obvious once someone points it out to you. Aw, poor guy. The walkway is also sloping towards the foundation, which is probably my main issue since it lets water in along the entire side. So that's going to get lifted so it's graded properly. Guy wants to shoot a bunch of this crap under my concrete, and apparently it's going to fix it all. Sounds like bullshit to me, but he was an excellent salesman. I'm also going to replace the old anchors with threaded rods and epoxy. The slab will still be thin, true, but I have 3 reasons not to worry about that too much. 1, I'm replacing all 8 outer anchors. These old wedge anchors really only grab the concrete at one point. I'm using these beefy 3/4 inch threaded rods epoxied with super strength anchor epoxy. This is the epoxy I'm using from the Big Orange store. With this, the anchors will grab along the entire depth of that 3.5 inch hole, and supposedly this crap makes an even stronger anchor than the mechanical wedge anchors. Second, while I couldn't find slab thickness specifications for this 5,500 pound lift, the manuals for some very similar style 7,000 pound models specify 4 inches. And this is a 5,500 pound lift, so that math carry the 1. That checks out. Thirdly, unlike more modern lifts, this one has these steel bars to spread the load from the rocking motion back and forth evenly along the concrete. It's also got loads of steel reinforcement here under the speed bump. It's almost like it was optimally designed for a thin slab, so I'm pretty confident this slab will be fine once it's filled in. Before the guys come in, I'm going to hammer all these old anchors into the dirt. The foam should fill the gaps and come oozing out of the holes like Play-Doh, and hammering these anchors through a thick layer of cured foam might be troublesome. Most of them retreated into the earth from whence they came, but 3 of them won't budge. I got my Harbor Freight slide hammer, and I'm going to sacrifice a nut and farmer weld this to an adapter and see if I can't pull them out. Not even going to waste 6013 on this job. 6011, for when you need your welds to be real strong and real fast, but you don't need them to look real good. Stick in the mud number 1 actually pulled out with the hammer. I think I broke the rock under number 2, because look. Goes down easy now. But number 3 here, she won't come out for me. Dual 4,000 pound jacks, 1 American made, 1 made in Taiwan, but it doesn't matter because the board is cracking immediately. really putting all my weight on these. I quit. If you have equipment handy, use it. Fiddlesticks. Trying again. 4x4 post, tighter clearance hole, and a beefier washer. Oh! Right in the nuts. Ugh. I'm suddenly feeling very confident that this remaining anchor isn't going to pull out on me. If I can find a way to stop it from spinning enough to get 80 foot-pounds, I'll just reuse it. I'll farmer weld this nut on, and then I can just hold it with a wrench while I tighten the big nut until the anchor bites. Just checking to make sure I don't have any flammables nearby. Nothing I can't replace. Next time a little less current and a little looser with the vice grips, but whatever, I can grab that. Time to hand it over to the pros. First, they drill a bunch of 5/8 foam injection holes through my slab, about 4 feet apart. The foam can expand to fill 7 feet in either direction, so this should be adequate to fill all my holes. While not cosmetically ideal, no one's going to argue that my floor was pretty to begin with. Then the plastic adapters get hammered in. Then they inject a 2-part foam from barrels in their truck into all the holes. Depending on the recipe, this foam can lift between 6,000 and 14,000 pounds per square foot, and it forms an impervious barrier to future water intrusion. This technique is used by airports, on runways, rail companies for their train yards, and PennDOT even uses it on our highways. But that may be more of an indictment than a vouch. Then they seal all the holes with mortar, and instead of using a shop vac to suck up the little piles of drill dust, they use a leaf blower to blow a nice even coating all over my furniture and vintage stereo system, which some might argue I shouldn't keep out here in the first place, but I digress. What did all that cost? For my 480 square foot workshop plus 35 feet of walkway, $5,700. About a third the price of a repour, but still, ugh. This drill is totally undersized for this bit. Fixed it. Nice clean hole. Didn't realize there'd be so many rocks. Looks like the foam tried to push the old anchor back up. Look at that. That would have sucked. Something in hole 1 done ate my bit. Guess I only got most of the wedge anchor out. I think I can count on one hand the number of times I've used a big flathead screwdriver as a screwdriver. Wait, you can't cut metal with a chainsaw like this. You need a chainsaw like this. Steel makes a fine saw, but nothing cuts like a husky. I've never used epoxy anchors before, so this seems like a prudent application to practice on. This is the first one I did, and I made some mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, just kidding. I should have squirted some into the trash can first to make sure that both parts of the epoxy were mixed thoroughly before putting it into the hole. See how it comes out black and slowly starts turning gray. Also, I didn't think to put the tip all the way to the bottom of the hole because I got an air bubble and the hole I thought was full was grossly underfilled by the time I put the anchor in. The other 7 torqued to 100 foot-pounds. Should have used 2 hands. The fact that these hold up to 100 foot-pounds tells me they're good, because math. It's actually a pretty neat little equation. T is applied torque. C represents the coefficient of friction between the threads, which for a steel-on-steel fastener is 0.2. D is the diameter of the bolt, in our case 0.75 inches. And F is the pulling force we're going to calculate. 100 foot-pounds, no wait, we got to use the same base units. 1,200 inch-pounds equals 0.2 times 0.75 times x. And x equals... Pauses the video and grabs a calculator. X equals 1,200 divided by 0.15, which comes out to a whopping 8,000 pounds per anchor. This 40-year-old 5,500-pound lift will fall like the walls of Jericho before those anchors pull out. Math is neat and reassuring. It's also why you should listen when the manual says to only tighten those little M6 valve cover bolts to 55 inch-pounds. 1,165 pounds of clamping force per bolt. Partner, if you don't feel like that's tight enough for you, that's your problem. So that's it. All that's left is to fabricate some new shims out of scrap aluminum I've got mulling around because these are rusty Sanduskies. And then level the lift with shims, and then I should be back in the air. I know these aren't the highest quality videos, and they're certainly too esoteric to make me a dime, but I love recording and sharing these little victories and failures with you guys. My next video might not be for a few weeks because I have something big coming up. If all goes well, it'll be a big life change, and it's some pretty cool stuff. So stay tuned, and as always, thanks for watching.